Good morning to all of those in this crowded sanctuary, barely room to sit down. It is Empty Bowl Sunday, and I'm grateful to all of you on Zoom as well for crowding the screen with your names and your faces. Some I don't see faces, but welcome Jim and Joanne and Joan and Lena and Karen and Bob and Marilyn and Warren and Connie. And welcome all of you out there, and we can all go to Empty Bowls together. The soup will still be there when we arrive. I will ring this again. But we ring this bell to acknowledge that these lands that we love, that support our spiritual practices, that support our getting ready to climb the canyon, that climb down the canyon, that these lands that we love are the ancestral lands of the Yavapai people, the Cuevquepayas, the Tolquepayas, the Wipukepas, and the Yavapai. On this day, as we are leading up to International Peace Day declared by the UN, I want to begin with a traditional greeting among Jews in Hebrew, Shalom Aleichem. Can you repeat that with me? Shalom Aleichem. And I say that, and then you say, Aleichem Shalom. So we'll try that. Shalom Aleichem. Okay, we'll try that with you doing your part and me doing my part. I'm sorry, I don't think I explained that well. I say Shalom Aleichem, and you say Aleichem Shalom. Shalom Aleichem. That is, peace be unto you and peace to you. And with those words, I invite you to rise in body or spirit. And if you have words near you, those are the words that are to this song, Peace in Our Hearts. And Mary and Leslie will lead us in dancing to these words.
Good morning on Empty Bowl Sunday and International Peace Week, and welcome to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Prescott, Arizona. I'm Leslie Grady, your worship associate and dance instructor today. We extend a warm welcome to all. We're glad you're able to join us and hope you're in good health. This is the mission statement of our congregation. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. Please join us after the service for socializing in small groups in the sanctuary, or for those on Zoom, please join us for the breakout rooms. I think most of us will be heading over for soup. And if you are joining us for the first time, please check out our website at prescottuu.org for more information about us. And if you're here in person, there will be time to introduce yourself at the end of the service. And then please stay and chat with a member or two. We thank our pianist, Leah Huben, our choir director, Mary Lou Prince, and all our Sunday morning volunteers. Please take a moment to put your phone on worship mode. Well, in addition to the announcements on the screen, this is our first Sunday we're doing this. We're going to be scrolling the announcements on the screen so you can read them. You can also read them in the order of service, the weekly Peak newsletter on our website, and Reverend Patty's videos. Sarah Palacios, our faith development coordinator, is teaching ages 5 and older across the street at our faith development building. Let's give this a try. We begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of lighting the chalice. Our chalice lighter this morning is Mary Steenhoek. As we light the chalice, may we imagine peace in our hearts, peace in our homes, imagine unity and kindness, friendship and love in the world. Imagine the beautiful inhale and exhale of tranquility, quiet and calm throughout the universe.
Shalom Aleichem. And now in Arabic, Salam Alaikum. And then you say, Alaikum es salam. Alaikum es salam. Okay, so Salam Alaikum. Thank you. Thank you. The welcome that I have experienced, because I lived for 7 years in what is called the Middle East growing up, the welcome that I experienced over and over in places like Syria, Lebanon, Bahrain, Israel, which was part of Transjordan when I was there as a child, and Palestine is like no other. Arab American poet Naomi Shihab Nye describes this welcome in her poem, Red Brocade. The Arabs used to say, when a stranger appears at your door, feed him for 3 days before asking who he is, like Zania. Where he's come from, where he's headed, that way he'll have strength enough for an answer. Or by then you'll be such good friends you don't care. Let's go back to that. Rice, pine nuts, here, take the red brocade pillow. My child will serve water to your horse. No, I was not busy when you came. I was not preparing to be busy. That's the armor everyone put on to pretend they had a purpose in the world. I refuse to be claimed. Your plate is waiting. We will snip fresh mint into your tea. Let us sing that welcome into our sanctuary. I invite you to rise in body or spirit, and we will sing, come, come, wherever you are, whoever, sorry, whoever you are, twice. Now I invite you to be seated as we say our covenant together. Love is the doctrine of this congregation, the quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together. And now we go back to the sound of the bell. And I invite you to consider all of the joys and sorrows you bring into this sanctuary that you that you feel in the world you live in, the people around you, the people you love, and all that is happening on this earth. Let us breathe together and feel the heartbeats that are moving through this sanctuary and through all of those of you who are on Zoom. Our beloved community is the heart of Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. As we experience this time of meditation and music, we will take a few moments to acknowledge silently the joys and sorrows of our hearts and minds. We have the joy in Prescott of 50 years of Sister City peace building, the joy in this community of Patrick Grady and Mary Steenhook as our Lovejoy Award recipients. We hold the sorrow of Ken Briefer's sojourn in hospice, Kat Euler, who lost her longtime companion just 2 weeks ago, Dan Reardon, who continues to mourn his Sandy, Eric Day, who continues to mourn his beloved, Lee Phillips and Ed Rosage, who are recovering well from COVID. We also hold in sorrow the people of Pakistan who are displaced by flooding. 3.4 million children are in immediate life-saving needs. The flooding has been dubbed the worst humanitarian disaster in decades, in a decade where there have been so many disasters. We hold the people of Ukraine, the people of the surrounding countries. We hold the Russian people, the leaders. We hold them in the hope of their desire for peace. We hold Taiwan that is bracing for a tsunami as they continue to be concerned for their country and attacks from a very old enemy. I invite you now, those of you who are on Zoom, to write the names or events or anything that you would like to have us hold in our sanctuary. And I invite those of you who are out there to say those names of people you are holding. I would say Karen Denny, we are holding her. And Kathleen's daughter, Corrine. Okay, thank you. I don't see any messages on chat. And now we will enter into a time of meditation. I invite you to come up as the music is being played and to add stones in the water. And it is our prayer that the ripples from the stones will move out into our community, that we will feel that we are sharing all that is in the world and those things that are especially on our hearts. I added a marble for Fiona, a granddaughter who has turned 11 today and promises to be a great force in the world. I also add that marble for all those who do not have a community with whom they can share their joys and sorrows. May our joys and sorrows be surrounded by the healing communal water of our beloved community. We acknowledge that healing power here today. And now let us sing together, Walking, Walking with You.
As we prepare to take the offering this morning, let us embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather together each week. Let us remember that this congregation and its programs are supported by your generosity. We also give back to the greater community through our Seeds of Support program. This month's recipient is Empty Bowls. Please read about them in your order of service. To give online, the link is available in the chat, or you can go to the website. Please enjoy our offertory music titled Sinai Sky by Mary Lou Prince. That is just so beautiful. I love everything Mary Lou composes. We acknowledge the generosity of spirit expressed through this offering. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be. And now for the reading, my great friend, Mary Steenhoek.
The True Peace by Black Elk. The first peace, which is the most important, is that which comes within the souls of people when they realize their relationship, their oneness with the universe and all its powers, and when they realize that at the center of the universe dwells Wakan Taka, the Great Spirit, and that this center is really everywhere. It is within each one of us. This is the real peace, and the others are but reflections of this. The second peace is that which is made between two individuals, and the third is that which is made between two nations. But above all, you should understand that there can never be peace between nations until there is known that true peace, which I have often said is within the souls of people.
I was 4 years old when we were attacked on Yom Kippur. I remember us running to the shelter in Tel Aviv. It's very concrete for a child. They want to kill us. And I really didn't understand, why do they hate us so much?
ناصر أخوي كان أصغر مني لو كان تقريبا عمره 14 سنة. الجيش اللي حكوا له أطلقوا عليه رصاصة. أنا ما بعرفش كيف هذيك اللحظة قدرت أتحمل الموقف.
حلم أني أكون قاتل في صفوف الثورة الفلسطينية يعني وأكون جزء من الكفاح المسلح ضد الاحتلال. كنت مستعد إنه أموت في سبيل هاي الأفكار.
I was admitted into the most prestigious unit in the Israeli army. I was extremely proud. I knew my father was proud.
صرت أفكر كتير إيش أنا دوري في الحياة هنا. فاخترت إني أعمل عملية استشهادية. זה מקומם, זה פשוט מרגיש טרור. ככה מרגיש טרור בעיניי.
מישהו התקשר ואמר שיש פלסטינים שמוכנים להיפגש איתנו.
كنت كثير خايف إنه قد يكون في مصيدة يعني هون.
We find that we actually have something in common. That willingness to kill people you don't know.
عندهم قوة يا جميل مش طبيعي. بده يجي كم واحد من المقاتلين من أجل السلام رفضوا الخدمة يغيروها.
إذا أنت قريتي عن نيلسون مانديلا شخص لحاله غير دوله كان كل الدين وغير كل النظام، وأنت بتعرف إنه شخص لحاله، كل شخص لحاله كيف قدر يسوي هيك؟ كيف قدر يسوي؟
אנחנו מזמינים את כוחות הביטחון לפשוט את המדים ולהצטרף אלינו.
أنا ما بفقدش الأمل في فكرة إن السلام إنه ما في طريق ثاني غير السلام.
I hope you all try to watch that documentary. I will send a link out sometime this week so that you can do that. We showed it in this sanctuary for Movies with Meaning. I'm going to go back to the reading that Mary Steenhoek gave of Black Elk. I wonder how many of you know Black Elk? Many people familiar? He was born into a time of war in this country. At the age of 12, he participated in the Battle of Little Bighorn, and he was injured in the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890. He was there at that massacre when, in the middle of winter, American soldiers slaughtered Indigenous people. His relatives, his family at Wounded Knee, as they gathered for a ghost dance, which was a dance of peace, a peaceful movement that was spreading through many different nations and tribes in this country. And out of his life that experienced such tragedy, a vision was born. He felt that he was the one chosen to receive a vision of peace. I recommend looking up Black Elk and reading his vision, which still continues to be a great source of wisdom to many people. In the opening of the documentary, Disturbing the Peace, an Israeli, one who on this trailer talked about the bombing on Yom Kippur. He talks about his grandfather. His grandfather was a Zionist in Poland, and which meant that he felt that that area around Jerusalem, that place that has become the nation of Israel, that place was the homeland, would be a place where all Jews could gather. So he left Poland in around 1938, leaving his brothers and sisters and parents there. And I'm thinking of Ria, sorry, this is, because there is a very difficult story at the heart of much of this war, this killing, and this peace building. No one came with the grandfather. Everyone else in his family died in the Holocaust. He says in this documentary, I was saved by Zionism. Without this dream of a homeland, his grandfather would have also been killed. A Palestinian talks of the village that his family had lived in for centuries. And one day the Israeli army came in, ordered them to move, and destroyed their village. He says with tears, this was our home. And when he was imprisoned for an act of violent resistance, he and all of his inmates in prison saw Schindler's List. Moved to tears, his eyes opened and he thought, this is the history of the people that I hate, that I want to kill. His enemy became human to him. A Palestinian woman told of watching how she had watched children be killed by the Israeli soldiers. She was so full of anger and hatred. She was a single mother with one child. And to her, she thought the only way she could make a difference was to be a suicide bomber. So she goes to her daughter and she says, I am doing this thing. And her daughter asked her, will you come back? She said, I will be a star up in the sky. I'm sorry, I think spending my childhood in this place gave me all of these emotional connections. I'll try to get over it. Anyway, so this woman who is the mother of a child who's 6 years old, to whom she says goodbye, goes out, and somehow her plan had been found out. And so she is arrested and put in prison. And she spent many years in prison. And the story she tells is that the guard of the area where she is in prison, who is watching over her and the other women in this prison, one day she hears that this woman has lost a brother to a suicide bomber. She thought, this guard is going to be so cruel to me. And the guard said to her, I feel sad as you do when I lose a loved one. So throughout this documentary, we hear these stories where people transform. Their idea of the enemy transforms. They see instead a fellow human. One Israeli man, in fact, the one you saw right at the beginning of the trailer, he talks about his moment of change when he is a soldier at a checkpoint and there is a carload of children being driven by a Palestinian man who says, these children are sick, I must get them to the hospital. And he said, no, 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 you have something, you have to do this, you have to get permission in order to do this. At the same time, his wife calls him and said, our daughter needs to be picked up someplace. And so here he is concerned with his father's feelings towards his daughter, making sure that she is safely picked up. And he sees this car drive away, that he refused these sick children. And this shift happens in his mind, that which I call a miracle, is the shift that happens when he could see those children were like his own children. Another Palestinian man speaks of a curfew enforced by Israeli soldiers and his little brother who wanted to go to visit his uncle only 50 meters away. And the soldiers see him, he begins running and they kill him. He did not know how he could bear that loss, how his family could. And so when he and his mother are watching the news that talk of a suicide bomber that is killing children, he looks at his mother and she is weeping. And then he undergoes that transformation of thinking, and she says, that pain they are feeling is the same that we felt with your brother. Another Palestinian man ends up in prison and for acts of violent resistance. And while there, he and others begin to study the work and example of Nelson Mandela, someone else who lived in a prison, but was able to become the leader of a movement. They begin to wonder, maybe one man can do anything. They study Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and they catch that vision that is out in this universe that Black Elk caught. That vision of the possibility for peace through being peace. They find that peace within themselves. And throughout that documentary, we follow these people who have found that peace, who have undergone that change, being tested. But somehow, these people who find these things separately they find a way to each other. On both sides of the wall, people who believed in peace began to see that there were other people out there. On the Israeli side, the soldiers decided to write a public letter to the prime minister, and that news came to our country as well, saying they would no longer fight the Palestinians. Like that song we love to sing, if we refuse to be enemies, there would be no more war. These soldiers who refuse to fight are called traitors on the Israeli news. The Palestinians who are thinking of peace see them on the news and they reach out and invite them. And you saw part of that scene in the trailer. We travel with the Israeli soldiers as they enter what has been enemy territory. And they are wanting to talk about peace, but they're entering the same place they entered as the enemy. And on the drive, men and women are remembering their experience. They wonder if they're going to be ambushed. And then when they reach that place, they say, no, it's not going to be here. It's going to be somewhere else. Get in those cars over there. So you can only imagine the fear that they had to overcome, all of them wondering if they were going to be kidnapped and tortured. This journey that these soldiers went on is the embodiment of the road to peacemaking, of moving through our fears into a vision of life, that life can be transformed, that peace is possible. And finally, when these two groups meet face to face, at first you hear there's a voiceover and you hear them thinking, these are the people I saw as enemies. And they begin to speak honestly. They talk about what they did. The Israeli soldiers are afraid. What if I tell them about bulldozing a town and that ends up being the town of that person over there? What if their grandfather was killed in that bulldozing in that time? All of them are afraid of the direct connections that their life story could mean to the people in that room. And after the gathering, that Palestinian man says, we find we have something in common, the willingness to kill people we do not know. This gathering is the beginning. They begin to get to know each other, build trust, eat together, play together. That spiritual experience of transformation of their minds, of becoming so hungry for peace, they will not let it go. They take that a step farther into that very real practical work of building relationships with humans who were their enemies. These two groups of people continue to meet. It isn't easy. And then this group begins to transform and people join them. They become the combatants for peace. I believe that this is the work that Black Elk describes as the second step of expanding that first experience of spirit into the relationship with another. They show up for each other. They listen deeply. They disagree. The group grows, all against the backdrop of violence, the backdrop of failed peace attempts that we saw on our news. And their work culminates in an event marvelously inspired, an Israeli-Palestinian memorial ceremony to grieve all the people who have been killed in the conflicts. This is what they write about that. Our joint Israeli-Palestinian memorial ceremony honors the lives lost in the conflict on both sides and builds a new narrative of rejecting violence, the occupation, and embracing another way. Year after year, the growing popularity, success of this event models for more Israelis, Palestinians, and international audiences that nonviolent, binational cooperation and humanization is possible. We believe in peace and reconciliation. This year, on May 3rd, 2022, they held their 17th ceremony. I wonder, in this sanctuary and on Zoom, where are you in your journey to true peace, outlined by Black Elk and embodied by these combatants for peace? Where are you in that journey? I find myself often slipping through all of them. A week or so ago, Maria Fleury asked me for my vision of social justice in our congregation. The first part of my vision is that we work on the peace inside us. Some would describe that as Black Elk does, finding a oneness with the Great Spirit, who is at the center of everywhere and who lives within each of us. Many of us would describe that as a oneness with the universe, with our interconnected web of life. The way of finding that peace happens for some through meditation, others through dance, others through walking in the woods, looking up at the stars. Whatever you do, that is the important first work. For once that way to peace is found and becomes a practice, we can extend that peace. We have something peaceful to extend into our relationships with our loved ones. For as Ram Dass said, and this is one of my favorite quotations of all time, if you think you're enlightened, go visit your family. So we extend that to the people we love. We extend that peace into our neighborhoods, which we have been doing in the neighborhood around this building. In my dream, each of us lives in a different place in the Quad City area. I envision that we widen all those circles around each of us, getting to know our neighbors. And you can skip one or two who are really awful, because I don't want that to be the reason why you don't consider it. And I always hear those stories. And I have to admit, there's one man on my street I do not engage with. Don't let the most difficult one stop you from neighboring, stop you from starting to share your joys and sorrows with people around you and find theirs. I believe that neighboring can open us to the possibilities of transformation that we saw in this documentary, that there will be opportunities for our hearts to break open to compassion for others very different from us, the opportunity to see the oneness of all human beings. These feelings can be ephemeral, lasting only for a moment. And these are experiences we must seek each day. I feel that when I sing with people of many faiths in an interfaith choir, as we did last Sunday, when I sing with an LDS singer whose life I have come to know, I feel that. And sometimes I feel it when I walk in our neighborhood and when I walk around the square. And I heard somebody feeling that just this last week on the square when they were walking around getting signatures and had these wonderful conversations with people from different places and people from their neighborhood. And it is my hope for our worship services and mahjong practices and all the business of this community that we have those feelings of oneness, that we can feel that oneness right here. I believe that this work towards oneness can be a divining rod to find our common ground. This work is what prepares us for justice work, just as it did the Palestinians and Israelis. Justice work that will emerge, that emerged with the Protect campaign. When I could feel in that city hall, and I think many of you were there, the groundwork of human relationship, the seeking of oneness that had happened, that allowed the words climate change to actually be said in that place. Often we want to jump to that moment, like that moment in City Hall. Or I remember moments that I had in Salt Lake when I was asked to talk with the governor about something. We want to jump to that moment. So we get in our cars, we're out of sync with ourselves, the universe, our close ones, and our neighbors. And when we do that, we will not make a difference at City Hall. And there is an experience I'll tell you sometime about a conversation I had with the governor of Utah that I had to write and apologize for. Because I believe if we do not enter a situation with that work of peace with us, we cannot make a difference. And if we do, it will make all the difference. I believe that our potential to transform the world around us is dependent upon the relationships we build around us and the peace that we have in ourselves. Those Palestinians who became peacemakers had years in prison, with the example of Mandela, who used his time in prison for transformation. Black Elk's vision was grounded in his own ability to make peace within himself and integrating that experience of losing his people in a massacre of Wounded Knee, to transform that into a oneness with the Great Spirit and a vision of peace in the world. It is my hope that each of us sees the opportunities that are in our lives, the difficulties that become our grounding for seeing our oneness with the world, with the Great Spirit, if that is how we see the world, to find our grounding in peace. One of the greatest memories I have in my life was answering the call for clergy to show up at Standing Rock and then camping in my pup tent for 3 weeks in the North Dakota winter, experiencing the oneness of that place. I could have moved there. The deep grounding of all that we did in prayer and respect for one another. When I asked the UU minister who led important collaborative work at Standing Rock, how did they do what they did there? How did they become such useful partners in that work? She said, we were nimble. My vision is that we will be nimble when calls come to us, as the peace builders have been nimble, as they have created vigils and many events through all of the suffering that has happened in the past 3 years since I came here. If we prioritize our inner work, our work in our neighborhoods, that work will make us light and ready to act. We will be free from those burdens I hear about of hatred and resentment, we will be connected to the fabric of this community. May we each find a way to do this work. And if it only lasts for a minute, realize you just have to keep doing this work to make peace within and without. Today, as we all go to the square for empty bowls, I invite you to greet people around you in the line. Stand in that common ground that has been built up for 25 years, that common ground that has concern for hunger in Yavapai County. All who are there are our neighbors. Don't only engage with people whose t-shirts mirror our values. Perhaps waiting there is your experience of oneness in the world that will change everything as those marvelous people who became combatants for peace. Amen. And may it be so. And I invite us to sing Dona Nobis Pacem, grant us peace. Salam, shalom. Please rise in body or spirit, and we will sing this through twice. You may be seated. Thank you. Thank you. For my closing words, I have chosen a song written and performed by Jewish and Arab interfaith singers. This is a Jewish-Arab peace song. We have connections between us of which our parents never dreamed. We have discussions among us that were never before heard. We are here for everyone. We are a bridge and a ladder for all those who dream, for all those who have dreamt. And still in our lifetime and still in our days, we sing with our voices. We brought peace upon us, peace upon us. If your feast becomes mine, your faith and your dreams too, then we can build a new world of love and peace. When the intention becomes clear, all people become human. A family drinks from the same cup, the cup of peace. We have nothing more beautiful than peace, sweeter than peace. Yes, our parents ate the sour grapes of yesterday, but our teeth, you'll be surprised, have not decayed until now. Together, we will unite our hearts Together, we will open our minds with the children of peace, with the children of dreams from the cup of peace. Let us listen to them sing. We extinguish this chalice, not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or of community. These we keep in our hearts
until we are together again.
Oh, was that you? Was that you, Elaine? No. I feel like the Wizard of Oz is here somewhere behind the curtain. Come out wherever you are. Thank you all who are here on Zoom. You will now be invited to join a breakout room. And for those of you who are in our sanctuary, are there any who would like to introduce themselves? Fred, do you want to? No, I'm just kidding. I bet you're the one who's been making everything go funny. Okay, well, I thank you all for being here, and I hope I see you on the square. Thank you. And thank you, Peace Builders. Thank you.